Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 299, Time-Saving Tools. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. Our show today is brought to you by Instant House Call, remote support that is easy for you and your clients to use. You have all the tools you need, including an auto repair feature, which saves you time and money when helping your clients solve their computer problems. Check it out at instanthousecall.com/podnuts. Let me introduce the co-host. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. John, how you doing?
Happy to be here, Jeff. As always, 2 weeks in a row. Maybe we're starting something here.
Yeah, let's start a new trend. Also joining us, we have Eric Metzner, from NoWare Computer Repair. How you doing, Eric?
Not bad, Jeff. How about yourself?
I am doing excellent.
World's greatest company name.
It is.
Thank you.
I like that. NoWare Computer Repair. Wow, where is my tongue or brain
First you
today?
butcher my last name, now my business name.
If you want to be made fun of, just come on this show. No.
Oh, okay.
So what we do on Food Nuts. Yeah.
There you go. All right, John, why don't you go ahead and kick it off and give us a couple tips this week that we could learn from, or a story or something like that.
Yeah, well, a couple quick ones as usual. Something from the CRP group. Keep in mind if you're signing up to sell some Arachnus gear that you want to be on the aisle 8 page and not the Snap AV page when you're signing up for your account. I'll put a link in the show notes for that. But Snap AV may turn you down if they don't see you're more of a CE vendor versus a IT vendor. So just keep that in mind. It's not that they don't like you. You're just not at the right site. Handy side view. I'm not going to mention that. I'm going to save that for our tips and tools. I ran into a lot of issues this week. I don't know with what's called Intel RST. It's some older software that's on older Dell machines and a lot of other machines. Has to do with the AHCI and the RAID drivers on a machine. Problem I was having is I was going through with some Windows updates and just some other updates, and just quirky things were happening. And I'm going through the list of installed software, and I'm seeing this this Intel RST drivers from 2008, 2009. So I just ripped that out. But what I was running into is that every time I tried to uninstall it, it would say there was a pending install for this product. So in the show notes, I'll put some links to the register key you need to delete in order to get this removed. Very simple, very easy. Don't even need to reboot to make it happen.
Nice.
Had some fun with Malware Bytes this week and unable to install it. So I'm going to put the link in the chat and in the notes on the business uninstaller for Malware Bytes. Ran into an interesting article that is a conversation we've had many times, Jeff, about why to-do lists don't work. So, and I just thought it was good information that you read. You know, maybe just don't go down or have that squirrel moment. So just good information. Apply it as needed. Here's an interesting one. There's a YouTube video, and I've been installing this on customer machines, including my own. But the Edge extension for Chrome, it's actually the Windows Defender extension for Chrome. It's an interesting YouTube video. Where the topic is, wow, I'm really surprised I've installed this extension, but it actually works. So you be the judge, but I'll put the link in the show notes as well as the chat. And last but not least is how to use BitLocker if your machine does not have a trusted platform module, the TPM module. You can use a little USB key to sort of cheat the system. So those are my little tips for the week, and I'll put those all in the show notes.
Awesome, man. Thank you as usual. And Eric, do you have a tip or a story for us this week that we can learn from?
Well, I feel a little bit bad. There's John all organized with this list, and here I am.
Don't feel bad. Jeff demands it of me. The only reason I can get back on the show.
But no, John mentioned Windows updates, and that is something I've been seeing a lot of. I've been seeing Windows updates tanking a lot of machines this past couple of weeks. So bad that it's requiring pulling data and reinstalling the operating system. So once again, Microsoft provides us pennies from heaven in our industry, I guess. But the only way, I mean, of course, we had that botched 1809 upgrade, which hit really hard. But they did something with the October update that they had for 1803 that was causing a very similar issue. And what I was seeing was that it was deleting the partition tables on the computers. So what you could do is you can use like parted magic to get into to get into the to reestablish a partition table, but you still can't boot into Windows, but you can at least access the data that way to pull data off in case the client didn't have anything backed up. So it's been a chocolate mess, but a profitable one. That and another big thing I have been seeing lately is people spilling stuff on MacBooks. Oh. Jeff and I were talking about this before the show started, and the worst one I saw was chocolate milk, and the lady let it sit for a couple of days, and when I opened it up, the smell of curdled chocolate milk was almost like getting punched in the face. So, so advice: have some. If you run into that issue yourself, have a face mask handy. You might need it.
You know, it's funny. One of those things that I look at when somebody spills something on their computer, usually a laptop, is when they call and say, "Hey, I've spilled this on my laptop." And the first question I ask them, if it was on, did you shut it off and unplug it from the wall right away? Or please tell me you didn't try to start it at all if it was off. And
yep, I had one guy was like, "It's working now. It's
yeah,
on."
exactly. I'm like, yeah, we're probably toast at that point because you probably fried something, and a lot of times because it's such a long process to get in there and clean everything up properly, you got to charge, and it's like you have to tell the customer it's a Hail Mary. It's maybe a 50-50, maybe a 75-25. I'm not really sure, but here's what it's going to cost for me to attempt this. Versus it may or may not work. I don't know but it takes me a lot of time to be able to do it properly. Could always tell them to put it in the dishwasher and just turn it on and see what happens. Let it dry real good.
Microwave.
All right. So appreciate that. And all right, my tip for the week is continually improve your processes. And what I mean by that is every time when I go through something, I will look at the process that I've used in the past. And sometimes when I look at that process, I look at things and I go, when did that get in there? Or why is that in there? Or why doesn't that link work the way it's supposed to? As you can tell, I've went through some of these things over the last few days. And so I had to go back and continue, go through the things that I had already put together and thought, man, they're rock solid. They're exactly what I need them to be. And they're not. So sometimes you have to take a little bit of time and go ahead and go through your process and see if it still makes sense today versus when you put it together yesterday or last year or 5 years ago, etc. That is my tip. Just something we don't think about a lot of times until we actually need that process. And then that's the wrong time to be putting that stuff together. You got to do it when you got to have time. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick break. TechCon Unplugged, September 20th through the 22nd, 2019 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. If you want more information and to be put on the newsletter list, go to techconunplugged.com. We will get that information to you, and we should have the new website up and running by the end of October. So you should be able to purchase tickets, get your hotel room with a nice discount and all that. And we're excited, still working on getting some things put together. And it's going to be a great time. So if you want more information, check it out. But here in a short period of time, we should have the website up and running, and we'll be announcing that probably by the time we get back to the show, beginning of the month. So beginning of November. But yeah, so you can always go and check anytime you want, and you'll be the first to know. But as soon as the people that sign up for the newsletter, as soon as we get the information changed over, we'll go ahead and send a email out to all those people that were interested. All right. So today we're going to talk about what tools do we use to save ourselves time. And we could go anywhere from the software we use to things that we use for documentation, even things that we use in processes or whatnot. So there's a lot of different places we can go with this, and we'll see where the conversation will take us. John, I'm going to kick it off to you. And what's something that you use in your business to save you time, or what's something that you maybe used to try to save you time and that didn't work out too well?
Ooh, that's a good one. I didn't go that way. I kind of broke my list up into a couple different lists, starting with just general tools, meaning like hardware that I use. Nothing too exciting here, just some tips that I'll put some Amazon links to if anybody's interested. I have it's called the Every Bit Tech Rescue Kit from Tecton. It's a little 46-piece kit that has the spooger in it, the suction cup, mini screwdriver, just a ton of heads, including all the hex head for Macs and all that kind of stuff. Nice thing about it is it's pretty darn inexpensive. I'm trying to bring it up right now just so I can get that. On the same realm, I have a stubby ratcheting screwdriver that I carry with me. Most of the time I carry that. It's for rack work, because you need something a little heftier to get in on the rack screws and all that kind of stuff. Nice thing about it though is it's got 12 heads in it and they're very compact, so it fits in my laptop backpack really easy. The Tecton kit is only $21. The mini screwdriver is only $12. So I've got those on the list in the show notes. The other thing that I think is a really handy tool that saves me a ton of time is if I actually take the time to label a lot of the equipment that I work with. So and also what I would call, the ID10T labeling for the end users, meaning putting tag on it that says this is the cable modem, this is the Comcast box that controls your phone line if they have such a thing, this is the router, this is the switch, just for those phone calls when you ask them to go up to the data closet or whatever and say, hey, just reboot the modem or reboot this, and they're like, what is that? So little brother, I put a brother label machine link in the show notes. I would say anything's good. I like the brother devices. Specifically, I like the ones that use what's called the TZ model of tape. And the reason for that is TZ tape, you can get just about every color, every diameter. You can get stuff that is spill and chemical resistant. There's just a ton of options in TZ tape if you should ever need to do that. And a lot of third parties sell it, so it's not very expensive. So
my question for you is, because I bought a label maker a while back and I was using it for tagging cables and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the tape on it sucks. And I can't remember what
Mm-hmm.
brand it is. I should have pulled that out now that you brought it up. But the tape does not stay stuck even when you stick it to itself or try to wrap it around a cable. So I'm looking for something that's going to have a better tape system that I can actually stick to things and not have it fall off behind the client's desk or my desk or whatever.
Well, if you just hit Amazon and put in like brother TZ tape, there'll be 1,000 options and all different colors, all different brands. Some of the off brands you got to be careful of because you never know what you're going to get. So buy those primes so you can return them easy if they don't work out for you. But I've had very good luck, and usually half the time I got to pick really hard to get off what I've labeled. So
awesome. That's good.
Over a long period of time. And if I can find it, I'll stick the general black and white tape that I'm using, which is an off brand, which I've had good luck with.
Okay.
But those are the general tools that I'm thinking. I don't know what else I've missed. Eric, can you think of anything to add to that list?
One of the things that I do that you don't do, that you didn't mention anyway, was as far as repair utilities go, I keep a lot of stuff on a single USB key, and I keep multiple copies of that key right at my desk. Things, utilities that I use regularly, keep it handy, and it's nice and small and portable. But I agree with you on like the screwdriver set. You got to have a good set. I use the iFixit tool set, the second edition that they came out with a couple years ago. Works really well. But other than that, I think you covered it pretty well as far as physical tools and stuff like that goes.
Very cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and keep it with you, Eric. And what are some of the things that you think of when it comes to saving time in your business? Some of the things that you use that will actually save you time, or like I said earlier, something that you've tried to use to save you time and didn't actually do that.
The biggest time saver that I've come up with over the last year, and you guys are probably going to kick me square in the hind end, but I actually hired a part-time assistant. And having her around saves me a lot of time. Basically, she does everything that I forget to do or I don't want to do. She keeps up on all of my social media stuff, does all my blog writing and editing, keeps the office clean, reminds me when tasks need to be done. Just having that second head around, though, someone else that can pick up the slack is a huge time saver. And she only comes in a couple days a week, but that alone it really, really helps. And it also helps give you perspective on your business. Like the big saying in business is you need to work on your business, not in your business. And having someone else around to help you, even just a little bit, helps give you perspective on what you can do to make your business grow or even, thrive a little more.
That's really good. I think a lot of people will forget that, when we're inside our businesses and we're looking at the inside and we're looking at how good our business is doing or how bad it's doing, our perspective is going to be skewed, and it's human nature. There's no way out of that. So if you get that outside perspective of somebody else that's in there helping you, but they see it from a different vantage point, they're going to be able to see things that you can't, and that's going to help you in the long run.
Very much so. Very much so. It's like seeing the forest from the trees. It can't be done. And it's helped me in so many ways I can't even begin to describe. Even silly things like just the aesthetics of the walk-in shop. Hey, this could look this way. We'd be a little more comforting to the clients, or stuff like that you don't even think about. And it's a real big help.
That's right, because milk crates are great to sit on. I don't know why people would complain about that.
Right. Cinder blocks are awesome.
Got the old spool in the middle with the old wire spool table.
There you go. There you go. Picked up a couple of those off the side of the road. Yeah, they were just getting rid of them.
Actually, Eric has read that. His tip is very sage on an employee and all that. And don't forget about your vendors, your vendor partners, your distributors, all those. Those are ways or quote unquote tools that you can use to maximize your business too. If you're dealing with a vendor or a distributor that is not providing or maximizing your time, it might be time to maybe look at something else.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, you don't want somebody that's sucking up all your time when you're using their product or service to actually save you time. We won't say money because, sometimes we need to pay a little bit more for things that are actually going to work in our favor. You can always make more money, but you can't get back more time. All right, John, what else you got on your list there?
Well, I guess I'll just start hitting some tools, what I would maybe call service tools. So the big obvious ones that I use are G Suite and Office 365. And a lot of the things underneath there, like Google Keep, which I use as my catch-all, but I use G Suite and Office 365 in the paid versions just to meet some of my compliance needs. And I'll have links to all these in the show notes, so if anybody wants to check those out. If I go down a quick list, I've got about 10 that popped in the top of my head really quick. I use 9-Night Pro for a lot of my third-party patching. I use Ninja RMM. I really like, and I'm starting to use more, the Bitdefender Gravity Zone tools, which are not just AV. I mean, you can do things from there for security for Exchange, full disk encryption, security for virtualized environments. They do have patch management, which I haven't played with yet. They have something that's called HyperDetect and a sandbox tool, which is like a FIM or a SIM, SIEM. We won't get into that. And then they have the standard endpoint detection and response. So, I mean, it's a very powerful tool. Pricing is great. So I would encourage anybody to look at that. I use Overseer for all of my Arachnus products, which I really like, which is a monitoring and management tool online. QuickBooks Online for my finances. And then I have a list of other 10 that I just were in my shortcut link that I use all the time. So I use Hetrix tools for IP monitoring and domain monitoring for my clients. I use Cloudberry Backup. I use SMTP to go for SMTP services. I use Paubox, PAUBOX for my email encryption. NetScout, which we're all familiar with from our friend Marvin B. But I'm talking more about their Link Live service, which is where your device will report to. There's a web page where you can keep a record of everything that you've done, all your cable testing and all that sort of thing. I put AppRiver in the list because they have an interesting set of tools. I use them for my Office 365. Zoho Assist is a third-party, remote access tool, and I use that as I kind of resell that to some clients. I use that to some places where I'm not using my RMM tool. And then for my HIPAA compliance, I use a company called Compliancy Group. And the reason I listed that is they have an interesting online tool called The Guard, which helps you manage everything. So, I would say those are my software tools that what I would call are more of a software as a service that I pay for. I'd say those are my top 10 list.
Okay, awesome. And Eric, what about you as far as software? Maybe because obviously everybody does things a little bit differently, and maybe not using the same types of tools. But what are some of the things that? Because obviously you probably use some of the same things, but there's probably other things that you use specifically in your business.
Definitely, yeah. John mentioned Nanite Pro. That is a huge time saver on clients' devices, keeping those third-party softwares and applications up to date. Also, CCleaner Cloud is great as far as keeping just basic cleanups automated. That helps a lot. One of the things that I really like using, and I just integrated into my business this year, is Invoice Ninja. It's a lightweight invoicing software and a very light type CRM type software, and it's actually helped quite a bit. So I'm really enjoying using that. It's like $8 a month, and it really comes in handy as far as my business goes. Another thing that I've been using a lot of is the Malwarebytes Tech Bench software. There's a little bit of controversy, with the price, but it definitely is a time saver as far as getting quick and dirty diagnostics done and quick and dirty malware removals done as well. Oh goodness. And then Jeff and I asked Jeff if he's still using the Excel spreadsheet, and he is, and so am I. I still use for my bookkeeping an Excel spreadsheet. It's what I know. I've got it modified so much. However, I'm thinking that might change at the end of the year. I've been messing with this program called K My Money. It's a Linux-based program that does it's like QuickBooks, only kind of a little more customizable. So I'm probably going to switch to that, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm kind of loath to let go of my spreadsheet, but we'll see.
Now that's good, because I know you shared back when you were on the show before, you shared your spreadsheet with me, and I was able to take a look at it and see what types of things you were doing. And so I had taken the spreadsheet that I'd been using for years, and I did a similar thing, but more towards my business. And then I've shared that with several people out there that have bought the Technical Computer Business Kit, because that's originally where that original spreadsheet came from. And then I tweaked it from there. So I had a base foundation, and I was able to put things in there that worked for me. And so as long as people have bought the Technical Computer Business Kit and it can prove that to me via email receipt or something like that, I definitely can share that with everybody. And it's just it's a simple monthly format where I can look at basically what's coming in, what's going out. And, yeah, there's a lot, it's manual, but so are a lot of the other programs. You have to manually put in the information in order for it to get there. So.
Yeah, and I seriously, I spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day working on it. Like it's not a big deal.
Once it's there, all you've got to do is take the information from that day and just input it into the system, right? So it's not
exactly.
See, John has people for that. His lovely wife.
I've got people. Yeah,
So, anyways, okay. So we've laid out a lot of things that we've put out there as time saving. Now let's talk a little bit about that and talk about maybe the processes or things that maybe even come up with something that we thought might have saved us some time, but it actually ended up being more of a time suck, and we had to go back and revert to our old systems. And and maybe we can start there, and then we'll move on from that. Anyone got a story?
One of the things I tried doing to save time over the past couple of years was I started taking on interns from some of the local. There's a place here in my community called the Career Center. It's a place for high school kids to learn like a trade. One of the things they have there, they have computer repair classes. And so I've tried working with some interns on that, and that turned into a time sink. That turned into me spending my time, teaching these kids stuff they should have been learning at the Career Center, but they just weren't being taught. And at the end of the day, it got to the point where my time investment in them was losing me money. I wasn't able to do my job as efficiently or dedicate as much time as I would like to. So as much as I wanted to help out the community and help out these kids, I found that just gobbled my time away and had to back away from it.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I'm actually going to college right now, and really the teachers don't teach you in college like they did in high school or junior high or elementary school. It's it's kind of a, hey, here's the curriculum, here's what I need you to do, and if you can't figure it out, feel free to ask me the question. You got to know the right question to ask, but as long as you got that, you're good. So yeah, it's college to me is almost a self-learning process. Yes, there's information and stuff out there, and there's textbooks and whatnot. And obviously, if you're doing electrical engineering or something like that, there's certain things you have to know. But even from that standpoint, man, it's really kind of self-teaching. So yeah, I can understand you going in and thinking that these kids are going to know something that they should, but really have never been taught. John,
Yeah.
what about you?
Oh, I've been doing this so long. I think I blocked out all my bad mistakes. There's been so many. Yeah, I made some bad business decisions along the way. I probably hired a few people that I shouldn't have along the way, but those are all things that maybe you don't see coming. And I don't know how to explain it, but a lot of the time now, or at least in my business now, on this show, I sometimes, and when I talk to other guys, it's called your spider sense, but like when you're hiring somebody or you're picking up a new client and all that kind of stuff, if usually from the beginning, if you think it's not might not be a good fit, it's usually not. So don't be distracted by possible money. You're desperate to get some offload, some work, those sorts of things. Those are all the things that have burnt me in the past. Or maybe you're doing it. I want to say for a friend or an acquaintance or something like that. And you say, oh, I'll just do this free for their mother or their grandmother or something like that. Usually, you hate to say it, but sometimes kindness comes to, bite you in the butt. Not that you don't want to pay it forward. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, just be careful that you don't overreach yourself or discount your own knowledge and your own expertise and, what you're doing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's the what do they call that? The nice guy syndrome. Um, unfortunately,
Well, in our business, it's in our business. Sometimes I think though, once you touch it, even 2 years later, remember you worked on my computer 2 years ago, and now it's not working. So you just got to be careful what you do.
well, look at even refurbished things or things that you've had worked on. I mean, a lot of companies, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna warranty this for 30, 60, 90 days at the most. And then you're pretty much after that, I'll, replace or do whatever I need to do to make it right. But they just got to get past that, 30, 60, 90 days, and it doesn't matter. And nobody goes, well, I just paid. It's like, okay, it's a service. Yes, we couldn't, and that's why I think a lot of times with what we do with our customers, and here's a time saving tip is you have a customer that's coming in and it's got a computer, usually a laptop or desktop, doesn't really matter. And the thing is 4+ years old. You're a lot of times I feel this, that we are actually doing a disservice. Now, if they're willing to pay for it and they understand all the things that are involved, that's fine. But I will actually try to talk my customers out of fixing that computer and let's just get a new one. Let's transfer everything over. I'm still going to make money and they're going to be so much better off for a longer period of time versus working on something old and going, yeah, we could fix this, but this, or this could go wrong in the next 6, 8, 10, 12 months, whatever. We don't know. And so I think a lot of times sometimes you have to be, go out there and just tell them, here's the way it is. Here's the reality.
The other thing I would caution against, and I can still remember this, is when I used to pull cable and I was sort of getting at the end of wanting to pull cable, I took a really big job that I didn't want to take because there's a lot of money dangling out there. And I mean, it was like a month and a half of misery because there was a lot of cable. And I mean, I punished myself when I knew going in that I should have hired that job out. So, it's just type of things. When you know you don't want to do the work, it's just going to punish you, and then the rest of your day is going to be miserable. The rest of the work you do is going to be miserable, and then that work's going to suffer as well.
Yes. Yeah, and we've said it how many times on this show is sometimes you got to find the things that you enjoy doing because you're gonna do it better. you're gonna be more comfortable doing it. Now, it's not to say you can't learn something new and do that also, but most of the time you're gonna know the niche that you fall into and what's working for you in your business. And the other things that when somebody calls you about a certain type of job and you cringe as soon as they say the word, it could be cabling, it could be VoIP, it could be whatever. Then you know that's probably a good sign that that's probably not something that you want to do in your business. So you either outsource it to somebody else through your business, etc. Eric, what about you as far as the just kind of any other stories as far as not being able to uh, use something to save you time in your business?
Well, you mentioned cringing when you get certain calls and you hear one word, and the first thing that popped in my mind was Outlook.
Mm.
I can't stand Outlook. I won't use it. I won't service it. It's just an absolute nightmare. I definitely outsourced that to a lady here in town that's good at it. So I'm lucky that I have someone local that I can lean on for that kind of stuff. In exchange, I do all her Mac work that she doesn't want to do. So we kind of have a service trade together. But yeah, one of the things that I do is when I talk to a client, I'm vetting them just as much as they're vetting me. I'm asking myself, do I want to enter a business relationship with this person? Is this going to be a pain in my behind? Is this going to end poorly? Our personality is going to clash. I'll gladly turn down jobs if I think it's going to cost me in the long run, not just financially, but mentally. If gonna work, I'll just walk away. It doesn't matter. No amount of money can make me work with someone that just won't fit. So on the upside, I don't find myself having to make that assessment very often that, hey, this isn't going to work. I don't want to do this. But it does occur, and it's something you definitely need to keep in mind. You don't need every dollar that comes your way. You don't need to grab at every opportunity, especially if it's going to end up bogging you down in the long run.
Excellent points. Yeah, I think a lot of times we look at the customer out there and we want the business and we'll force ourselves to do it, to take the business, even like John said, when our spider sense is tingling and we say all of a sudden it's like, whoa, wait a minute. We need to take a step back and figure out if this is going to cost me more time and make me less money, I can always go out there and get the right customers that fit for me. And I think a lot of times we don't think about those things because we're looking at the right now. And I'll say this, in this business, this is a long-term business. This would be like, I think I mentioned this last week or a couple weeks ago. This is like doing stocks. It's a long game. It is definitely not a short game. So you've got to look at those things and go, is this going to cost me in the long run? Not what it's going to cost me today, because you can take the small hits today and move on from there. John, you were going to say something?
No, I'm just laughing at you. Somebody in the chat said, with great power comes great responsibility. So
Spider-Man, we love him. So John, what's another thing that you looked at in your business that you go, oh, or maybe even something that worked for you as far as being able to?
On a positive note, we talked about a lot of these tools, and I got a couple more on my list. I'll go through two, maybe at the end. But the idea is when you run into a problem, and maybe if you've seen it more than once or twice, you should be automating the remedy to that problem, using your RMM platform to maybe be able to push out the fix to that endpoint. What's a simple one? Fixing a print spooler, maybe that's corrupt or something like that. So you should be able to push those fixes out that one button repair. Or if you're even better, if you see the print spooler service is stopped, maybe your platform can restart it automatically. Those types of things. So if you're instead of having to log into that computer or actually visit the computer site to fix those things, that's where we get into utilizing tools like our RMM or maybe like a Wattbox to fix that problem or something like that.
That's good. Very good advice. So I want to go down a little bit different tangent here. And Eric, you and I were talking before in the show about the certain people using programs for virus removals. And we were talking about the longevity of the time on the bench or the time that you actually have to touch the computer in order to get it fixed. And so, do you have a process or maybe processes that didn't work for you to get you to the process that works for you now?
Well, what we were kind of talking earlier about, I mentioned that there seems to be almost an automation fatigue happening in our industry,
Yes.
where people try so hard to automate absolutely everything, it ends up costing them time. We were talking about there's this script that a lot of people are fond of for virus removal. The thing takes like 4 hours to run though, while it will remove the virus or whatever. 4 hours, seriously, if you know what you're doing, you can fix it yourself in 20 minutes. And that's 20 minutes on your bench, get it cleaned up and get it out and collect a paycheck on it. And it's just silly that to waste 4 hours on it with an automated process that just doesn't need to take that long. So what I found works mostly, I mentioned I use the Malwarebytes tool bench or tech bench. That's great for today's malware. It's great for what I mean. We're not seeing the FBI scams anymore. The big things we're seeing these days are the tech support scams, and just your run-of-the-mill adware. And a quick scan with like Malwarebytes or even ADW cleaner pulls so much of that out. The big thing is client education. And a lot of us forget that this is a very people-focused industry. We can fix things all days long, but if our clients keep doing stupid crap, we're going to have to repair all that. If we get those calls, oh, well, you just fixed this 2 years ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, whatever.
Right.
So educating our clients on security or on best practices is huge, and it's a huge time saver too. If you teach them to use the right browser, like don't use Internet Explorer, don't use Safari. Here's these extensions you want to block ads. Here, this gets rid of the pop-ups. Don't use the clickbait. No, you don't need to know what Star Trek character is your soulmate. No. I mean, if you just spend 5-10 minutes educating their clients, you save a lot of pain in the butt in the long run, a lot of aggravating phone calls or emails or whatever. And so I would say that's my ultimate time saver is client education, getting it to where the computer is not a mystery to them anymore, and they understand that their actions have consequences, and conversely, that their good habits cause for less problems, less calls to me. I mean, so yeah, educate the clients, saves time.
Saves them time and money, which is good.
Yes.
It's a win-win, right? Because when they
It
absolutely
is.
do need you, they're going to come to you because you were just upfront, open, and honest with them. You're not just trying to sell them a farm somewhere or a bridge, over nothing. You're giving them advice that's going to help them in their business. And again, it's a long game. We got to think about this as a long game.
Very much so.
Hey, Eric and Jeff, what are you guys using to train your clients or provide this information?
A baseball bat.
My winning personality and my patient touch. Mostly, it's very individualized. At the time that a repair is concluded and the client picks up their device or a job is done, I make it a point to spend 5 or 10 minutes with them answering any questions they have, going over why they had the issue they had and what they could have done to prevent the issue and what can be done to prevent it from happening in the future. And I find that just spending that little bit of time with them, they're ecstatic. They walk away very happy. There's an old saying in business that if you make someone mad, or if you make someone happy, you're lucky if they tell 2 people, but if you piss them off, you're lucky if they tell less than 10. However, those 2 people they tell, that builds a referral network. If you go the extra mile and educate your clients, they remember that. They remember that you didn't make them feel like dirt for not knowing all the tech talk and all the nonsense. And they'll remember that you spent the extra time helping them, and they'll tell their friends about it, and they'll come back to you. It like Jeff said, it's the long game, and it saves time. They're not calling you with the same issue time and time again because you taught them about it.
And I think the same thing. It's just having those little conversations. But John, I kind of know where you're going with this too, because I've seen you operate with your customers, and I've seen you sit there, and somebody will ask you the same questions you get asked when you're sitting down going over somebody's computer on a monthly basis for your business clients. Same things we get asked for the residential side, and we try to explain it in a way that they can understand it. But we know that a lot of times they're not going to do anything with that information. And that's fine. I still have people that have paid $400+ to a scammer because they didn't want to bother me. Of which I'm like, no, just pick up the phone, send me an email, whatever. I will get back to you. We'll take care of whatever this problem supposedly is. But don't just let somebody. But people, they don't know, or they get brought into that. It's a scare tactic. So they're scared and they go and do whatever the bad guy tells them to do unknowingly. So even having those conversations, and I've told them, just call me. And there are still times that regular customers still will not call, and maybe they're embarrassed or whatever. So I think it's just you say it over and over and over again. And listen, we don't have to go through this every time. And here's another thing too, and especially for the residential side, this comes into another thing of saving the customers time and money, is you can talk to them about going into a managed service plan where you basically are taking care of everything in the back end. And if something does happen, you're able to get in there quickly and resolve the problem in less time than it takes to basically do something that's been festering for usually months, sometimes even a year or more at a time. By the time you get to it, it's such a mess that I think a lot of people look at it and go, yeah, I'm just going to wipe and reload, even though I hate doing it. And if you maintain something over time, you can take care of that and have it where it works. Predominantly, here's the way I sell it, is that if I tell a customer, hey, or they ask me, why do I want to get this service plan? Do you like the way your computer's working right now? Yes. Okay. Do you want the computer to continue to work like that 365 days a year? If you do, that's why you want this plan. Or we can go into another plan where basically you go and we get with you every 3 months or every 6 months, and we do a cleanup for you because we know it's going to be a mess. Or you just wait till it breaks, and then it's going to cost you even more money and more downtime versus just doing something maintenance over time. And I think that's really the big selling point to a lot of people. Residential business, either way, business that makes a lot of sense, and it has for years because people have been doing it for a long time. On a residential side, a little bit less, but I think we're getting to the day and age where there are so many things that people are clicking on and doing that even if we wanted to protect them and stand there and tell them what not to do, it'd be a losing battle, and we'd be wasting our time. So,
I don't disagree with anything. I agree with Eric 100%. I think the most successful of us in our industry have that personal touch and spend that time. But I'm talking about, I probably have 1,000 users, on the 900 endpoints that I manage. So, even if I could spend 5 minutes with each one of them, that's certainly not going to happen just based on timing, location, and all that kind of stuff. And then I go back to, a lot of the solutions are, we'll send out a newsletter. When's the last time you read a newsletter that you got in your email from start to finish? I mean,
I've got a whole folder full of unread ones.
That's right. All right. So, and there's a lot of companies that will push out maybe training that's required. And if you can get to that organization to sign on to that, meaning management to sign on to that. But again, if you've ever gone through any of that for your current employer or other employers, I mean, you basically click, yes, 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 get to a questionnaire, and the questions are so obvious that, you're basically checking a box for some sort of compliance or something. So, maybe I need to start a new company or something like this, but I totally agree. I think end user training would probably eliminate if I had to guess, maybe 30% of the calls I have to take. I mean, that seems like a fair number, but, and a lot of the times you go back or a lot of the people call, and it always makes me chuckle. It's just like, we just did this last month and we talked about this. And remember, you're an adult. You have to remember your password. So, I get it. I guess I'm just grinding on here, a little bit of old curmudgeon-y in me, but right now, I don't think there's a great solution for mass end user training. Maybe
No,
I'm wrong. If somebody wants to send me some links and prove me wrong, I'll buy the beer at the TechCon for sure. But that's where I'm at with it.
I think you're right, John. I don't really think that there's people out there that there's people that have come up with, cybersecurity training and different training in different industries that coincide with ours. But the reality is, what are you going to make your customer remember? And John, you said it best. I mean, they're an adult. If somebody doesn't want to remember their password, they just figure they got a guy or a gal, in this case, John, they've got you, that they can just call up because you're going to be there. You're going to take care of that problem. And they don't mind. They don't know that it even irritates you in the background because you don't let them know. But in the back of your mind, you're like going,
most of the time. Most of the time.
If you were my kid, I would have smacked you upside the head and said, listen, but you're not. You're an adult. So you need to pay attention to what you're doing.
You can still smack them upside the head, even though they're an adult.
That's true. That's why I said, the old baseball bat.
Okay, let's be honest. There's a difference between I forgot my password because, there's 100 good reasons maybe that you forgot your password, but when they call up and they're irritated that the password doesn't work because they can't remember it, that's when I kind of lose my patience.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? We look at it, and the customers, a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, they're just frustrated with themselves. So a lot of times, even though they've probably gotten to the point where they put in the password so many times that they finally get a hold of you and go, even though they know most of them don't even want to call because they feel stupid. And quite honestly, how many passwords does the average person in a business have?
Too many.
Too many? How many? 5? 10?
Yeah, what world are you living in? Let me open my password manager here and I'll tell you.
No, not your well, I'm just saying, I'm thinking about, I have 300 passwords, but I use a password manager. That's the only way that I could actually do that unless I was using the same 5 passwords for everything, right?
All right, and then Rick just posted in the chat. I got to bark back at him. Rick, you're married, you have kids, and you're older, as old as I am. So his suggestion is that we just practice the art of patience.
I got a good book for you to read. It's called The Art of War. Oh man. All right. So
it's true though. We got to be patient. We get paid to do this sort of thing. I get it, but I would love to maybe develop or find, or I tried to do this thing where instead of sending a newsletter, I did this 60 seconds with your Maven group, where I would just send this email where literally 60 seconds and you could read the whole darn thing. And, then I started tracking people that are opening it and actually reading it. I was wasting my time there. So, I'm not sure where to go with that.
Right.
And that brings up an interesting point that there's definitely a room for improvement in our industry in personal training or training our end users on what to do, what not to do. None of us have the time to do it, or some of us don't have the patience. But none of us here today can think of someone, hey, this company does it, that this company that has the personal touch. So anyone who's listening, hey, you want a business idea, next $1 million IT idea, there you go. Just don't forget, who gave it to you.
Right. That's awesome. No, it's true. Yeah, there are things that in this industry that have not been developed yet. That's why when people say, "Oh, times are changing," well, yes, they are. Times always change. And the business is going away from what it used to be. Well, partially, yes, that's true. But when we throw in human nature, it doesn't really change all that much. We just have to adjust with the times and figure out some things. And I think, you're talking about automation fatigue. And I think when we think about automation, we're thinking about something to make our lives easier. And here's the problem. To a lot of people, the way it's painted is, hey, I just installed this program on my client's computer and I sit by the pool all day, drinking my Mai Tais, watching a sports game, and this is my life. The reality is sometimes those automation tools will make your lives maybe even a little bit more hectic because you're triaging things all the time that are happening on a daily basis that maybe you didn't even know were going on before. Is it saving you time? I don't know. It all depends on your business model. So you have to look at how you want to do business and what's going to work for you as far as automation and what tools, going back to, you were talking about the automation of a virus removal, having a program that runs on it for 4 hours. Now, back in the day, when I first started, I would probably run anywhere from 6 to 13 hours of scans in order to get the computer clean. Now, this was back in the XP days, not that long ago, really. And I remember the number one thing my customer said back then was, my computer has never run as good as it's running right now, even when I brought it home from the store. And to that, I said, wow, okay, that's awesome. So what I'm doing now, I wasn't sitting there for 6 to 13 hours, but I was having to run these progressive scans over that time and going in several times, restarting the computer, et cetera. So it was a very manual process, but it worked out real good. What I started to learn later on, once we got to Vista X or 7, 8, 10, so on and so forth, is that really I was taking maybe 10 different programs that did identically the same things or so close to the same things that it didn't matter. I didn't need to run scans from all of them. I needed to pick the ones that were going to work for me for what I've seen. And going back to a lot of it's really, when you think about traditional viruses, there really aren't for the vast majority. It's a lot of malware. It's a lot of things that are just sitting in the background, kind of phoning back home, being a nuisance. And they're fairly easy to get rid of nowadays for the most part. Now, there'll be people that tell you, well, you never know if a system is 100% clean unless you wipe and reload it. And that's not even 100% true, but whatever. But you know what? Here's the thing. But 99.9% of the time, I do know. And for that 0.1%, okay, so I have to go back in and eat that one. So what? But the percentages don't lie. I'm sorry. It just doesn't work to where I've fixed 100 computers and 50 of them are reinfected because I didn't totally clean it up. That's not a reality. But in some people's eyes, I guess it is.
Well,
So
I
anyways,
think part of the problem stems from maybe the management or ownership not understanding the value of that training or the value of that, or not understanding really what the threats are, or really the power that their users have. They don't understand that this box in front of them can cause a whole lot of trouble. I mean, if their users are allowed to do all of these things that maybe they shouldn't be allowed to do on the work computer, or the value in training them to maybe be able to identify a phishing email, or even building the processes in their email that, hey, we don't transfer this much money if it's over this amount because you need to get some sort of verification from a manager, so on and so forth, if you
be
will.
it like a real phone call, like actually talk to the person, that type of thing.
Yeah, because I've had a couple clients. I had a construction company that almost transferred $175,000 until the general manager walked by and the office manager said, hey, I'd got that email. I'm going to transfer that money. And he said, what? So, I mean, there was like 2 minutes before she clicked the button. So, I mean,
It's bad. That is
yeah,
bad. But what are you going to do? I mean, it's what we do, right?
I'm going to send a
And
newsletter.
60 seconds with my Maven. Maybe 60 seconds is too long, John. Maybe you should keep it down to 15 seconds and maybe it'll hit a little bit better. You just hit it in little snippets.
Well, I almost thought
Don't,
maybe video would be a better way to do it. Maybe people would be more engaged with video. But then I think to myself, half the time I stray the other way and think, I'm going to spend all this time to get 10% more engagement.
right. And that's the whole thing. I mean, when you look at engagement on any of this stuff, you look at even what we do here, 10% of the audience watches what we do on this particular channel. And the other 90% listen to it audio wise because it's easier. They're in their car. They're going from point A to point B. But for some people, they like to watch the talking heads and see us on here. I don't know why. But whatever. We definitely appreciate people that do take the time and watch, and enough people have said, hey, we'd like this avenue to be able to see this. So yeah, this is why we do it. But yeah, total engagement, man. It's different for the different forms that you use. All right, if we solved anything here, let's end with this. Eric, is there any other things that you can think of off the top of your head that have saved you time when you put them in place versus maybe something that you were doing before that?
Off the top of my head, and it's something that you touched on earlier, was having processes, having standard operating procedures, and having those written down, actually typed up, put in a binder, something that you do the same way every single time. That has been a huge time saver for me over the years. And of course, yeah, you have to go back every so often and update those processes, because they're not set in stone. They're just on paper, and you'll have to update them. But it still helps doing the same thing the same way every single time, having a pattern, not having the question what needs to be done. So that's a huge time saver. Have processes. This is a business after all.
Yeah, and it goes back around and around. The problem with making processes is nobody takes the time to do that. We just had one of the people in a Facebook group that basically said they were going to start doing standard operating procedures and putting their processes together for doing things. Same thing I've been talking about for like the last 4.5 years, that I know I need to do and make my, I have the processes, unfortunately, are here. The problem with having them up here is I can't transfer them to anybody. So here's something that I will give you, and this is what I got from Mike McAllister's book, Clockwork. This is the one big nugget that I took out of this thing. If you want to do a standard operating procedure for your business, the problem is when you go to write it down, when Mike said this in his book, because I listened to it on Audible, it clicked, because I go, this is exactly what happens. I go to write it down, and I'm sitting there trying to think through the process of what I need to do. Well, then my brain just goes, it like shuts down and doesn't want to move to the next step. It gets confused. I'm not sure why. Again, probably human nature. So what he suggests is the way they make their standard operating procedures is they take a little webcam, an iPhone, whatever type of phone you have, something that has a webcam or has a camera on it, and you video you actually doing the process. So then when you take that video and let's say you want to train an employee, you go, here, this is day one. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to sit down and watch this video and learn the process. And you can always go back to this video if you don't understand how something is done. That way you're not coming to me all the time asking me, how do I do this? You've got the tools. And he said, one of the things he said was every once in a while, especially when new people are coming up, they might have to redo that video as times change. In one of the examples he gave was postage, sending things out via US mail. And, rules changed over the years, so they had to change their process. It was easy to pop open a phone or a laptop and just go through the process of grabbing the box, packing the stuff in. Here's how we pack it. We think about this as simple, but to the person that doesn't know if they're doing it right or wrong, a lot of times this process of seeing it visually makes sense to the human brain. And so that's one of the things that I need to pass down some information to. I've got a couple of sons that want to start doing what I'm doing. And so with that, I need to come up with a process. And I sat down and tried to write this thing out with my wife as I was doing it. Actually, she was writing it out. I was just doing it, but it's still trying to get it exactly what I wanted to say or how I wanted to say it didn't come across right. And I'm like, no, not, it was confusing. But if you show somebody via a video, to me, that's going to be a big time saver. So there you go. That's going to make everybody $1 million, and you're welcome.
Thank you, Jeff.
John, you got anything else that you can think of that you basically had put together that has saved you time in your business?
No, I won't think of anything else until the show's over.
Isn't that the way it is? Well, and I think the number one thing that's being said, and I think you guys can agree with this, is this time-saving process is a constantly moving target. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah, it is. It is, because what saves us time right now isn't necessarily going to save us time next year or the year after. So it's something that you have to always be kind of mindful of. Again, this industry is constantly changing. Change is the biggest constant, well, in the universe, but especially in the IT industry. So we have to constantly be on the lookout that our processes that change doesn't outpace what we're doing, our automation or our processes, and reevaluate, make sure we're making the right decisions or still doing the right things.
Right.
If that made any sense at all.
Yes, I understand. John, any lasting thoughts?
I'm working on my newsletter right now. I can't talk, Jeff.
Is that my minute and a half with the Maven?
That's right. That's right. No, I think this just brings up a solid point that this is the reason we do these shows, generate this idea, prove the point that we all don't have all the answers, and kind of learn from each other.
Absolutely.
So, I'm sure maybe or hopefully somebody will poke us in the eye and send us an email and say, hey, well, why aren't you guys doing this by next week so we can talk about it? But, I certainly don't have the answers, and I'm sure about all the answers, and I'm sure about that. But, that's why the community is so great.
Absolutely. Yes, I couldn't have said it better for myself. So with that, let's go ahead and let's talk about supporting this show. And if you'd like to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And our newest Patreon supporter, we have Gregory Ryglinski. And just appreciate you coming on board. And I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for your continued support. I think we're at 97 in the secret Facebook group. And it's great to have those people in there and a lot of good ideas being thrown around. And hopefully here we have talked about doing some training videos and different things on maybe the community's process of what they do in this business. And that might be a place where we might start to put some of those together and talk about some ideas of things that will not only save people time, but maybe show them a direction they could go, or maybe do something a little bit better than the way they've been doing it. All right. I think let's go ahead, and we've got a couple emails. Let's go into those couple emails. We'll end off from there. I want to take this first email. It says, hey, Jeff, I listened on the way to work, and you said you bought refurbished laptops on Amazon. I can't remember the podcast it was on. What was the name of the company you buy from? Thanks, Mark. Thank you for the email, Mark. And this is from our good friend, John Dubinsky, who turned me onto these guys over on Amazon, is SJ Computers. And I sent Mark a link, and we will definitely have a link for that in the show notes. I believe, John, you shared the link that you go directly to their page in the Amazon universe. And I'm telling you, the laptop I have was really nice. Refurbished laptop. It was a Dell Latitude, and just, I love it.
I mean, there's a ton of resellers on Amazon that sell refurbished equipment. The most important thing you want to do is make sure even when you buy it from SJ or anybody, there's a couple different vendors I purchase from, is just make sure they've got the Prime logo and that you're buying from at Prime. Because if you get any problems, or if you get it and there's a problem, you don't even have to talk to the third-party vendor. You just go to the Amazon page and return it. It's just not a big deal. That is one of the big things about using Amazon versus a lot of other distributors that might save you time. Obviously, if you're buying refurbished equipment of any kind, buyer beware. You want to deal with a reputable dealer that usually gets you good equipment. I've had very good luck with it, but just keep in mind that it's been around the block, so test it out thoroughly before you deploy it. And like I said, just have that Prime logo on there, and you should be solid.
And I'll tell you what, too, John, is go ahead, and we talk about eating your own dog food. Go ahead and get you a nice business laptop that you can use in your business, because there's some sweet deals on there you can get a nice, decent computer for around $300 for refurbished. I mean, I spent a little bit more for mine because I wanted some of the nicer things, but get one of those, see if it works, so that you feel comfortable selling that to your customer when they ask, hey, where can I get a laptop? And you're sending them off to Best Buy or Staples or Office Depot or whatever. Eric, what about you as far as do you buy refurbished computers for your clients, and where do you do that?
I don't really provide refurbished machines for my clients, but I do for myself. And I did recently buy a Lenovo ThinkPad T440, I believe it was, refurbished from Amazon, popped in an SSD, and that's my daily driver at the office. And
Nice.
I couldn't be happier. Great experience. And for clients, I basically provide like a consulting service. I figure out what their needs are, what kind of machine will get them what the results they desire, and refer them that direction. And then, of course, I do all the setup, and that's how I make my money on that. I try not to sell a lot of equipment directly because I just don't want to deal with that headache and the taxes and all that nonsense. So I just do the consulting.
There you go. That's good. Yeah, because if they buy it outright, again, you're just doing the labor for transferring data, setting them up, making sure to pull, McAfee or Norton or whatever's off of there, because after 30
Removing the
days,
bloatware.
yeah, and all the other bloatware. But that's always been the one that really gets me, is they put this stuff on there, and yeah, shame on Dell, HP, and Lenovo and everybody out there that's doing this crap, because here's the reality. Okay, you put something on here, most of the people are not going to buy. And I understand why you do it. It's advertising, blah, blah, blah. You can make money from that. I get it. But the point is, so after 30 days or 60 days or whatever it is, all of a sudden that software stops updating itself and stops working. That is what I would call quality stupid. If you want to put it on there and have it as an option where at least the customer can click on it and start it and get it set up or whatever, which sometimes you can do, but in my opinion, when I look at that thing, it's usually running. I would say most of the time I pull in those machines, they're running. I get it, it's there, but it's like, come on. And everybody knows I use Windows Defender, and Windows Defender is perfectly fine. So you can tell your customers to use that. All right, so let's go on to the second email. All right, it says, "Dear John and podcast crew." So I guess, John, since you've come back, I've been demoted, and you're the head guy now. Says, "You guys have inspired me to take the jump from starting my own into starting my own IT business." Awesome. Now, while I'm working 2 tech jobs at once, my main job is a computer support at a middle school, while also running my company fixing personal computers for residential. But more on that later. All right, cool. Keep us apprised. Recently, I received a request about hosting and managing a website for a book author. Essentially, I would be responsible for building, hosting, and managing a website that would sell and promote his books. I have a few months to get this project up and running before he is ready to start publishing the books. Where's a good place to get started? What are some things I should consider? Any advice would be very appreciated. Thanks for all that you do. Russell from Ronin PC Pro. All right. Who has, where do you start if you want to do a website for your business for an author?
And if they don't have any website building experience, I would say just go to Weebly or Wix and go that route. I actually referred a client over to Weebly not too long ago for their business, and they got everything set up within a couple of days, and it works just fine. It's drag and drop. I mean, you can't get any simpler than that.
That's good. John, anything on that?
I don't do any website design on purpose, so I'm sending my stuff over to Matt, or there's a local guy here in town that I use. So,
and I'm going to say the same things that these guys have said. If website building almost has to be an interest to you in order to do it for somebody else. Now, I did it for my own website back in 2010 when I basically did a HTML static page for my business, set it up on HostGator, and use their stuff. I mean, nowadays with the hosting, you can get pretty inexpensive hosting with like HostGator, and they'll do the WordPress where they'll actually have it installed for you, and then you just go in there. But you've got to know how to do things in WordPress in order for it to make sense. So if it's something you want to dabble in, that's one thing. Or like Eric said, shoot, we took the TechCon Unplugged website, and basically that's Paco spun it up on Weebly and had it looking, decent in a short period of time. And so, now we we've got Matt Rodello, who's doing our real website, which will be WordPress, but because there's some more things that we can do inside that will make sense for what we're doing. But it's a simple place to get started, and they are pretty websites. Now, a lot of people have made fun because they were like, oh, you're using Weebly. Like, that's the redheaded stepchild. It's like, who cares?
Oh God, people. Yeah. All right.
But, and I get it. It's like, yeah, it's not what we want to use, but it's what's available and what's there. And I don't want to plug around on a website. I know Paco didn't. And I don't think either one of you guys will, you're like, hey, I'm not doing that. Let's give that to somebody else. So, but
I mean, let's say that industry's changed as well. You can't just toss up a WordPress site and forget about it anymore, or your customer's going to get hacked to the end of the earth, and their customers that are visiting are going to get exploited. And I mean, those things take monitoring and management now as much as anything we're running on site. So
yeah.
You need a pro.
Exactly. All right, gentlemen. I think it is about that time, and time for us to get on out of here. Eric, I appreciate you coming out. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, find out more about what you're doing, where could you send them?
Sure. You can take a look at my website. It's noware.tech. That's NOWARE.TECH. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, just email me at eric@noware.tech. That's ERIC@noware.tech. And I'm
awesome.
Pretty accessible, I think.
Thank you very much. And yeah, appreciate you coming out and sharing with us today. It's been awesome.
Well, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
And John, where can people find you at?
I'm in the Repair Podcast group on Facebook, begrudgingly. Not begrudgingly in the group, begrudgingly on Facebook. Let's make sure I'm clear on that. Or John at mavengroup.net. And thanks to everybody sharing stuff on the Facebook group. I mean, awesome. It's really a great place to go.
And I appreciate you coming out and sharing as always, John. And you're wonderful. We really missed your show notes is what it is.
That's the only reason I get to come back.
They're phenomenal. They're much better than what I would do, which would be nothing. But yeah, it's a task.
I'm not even going to say anything, Jeff. There's a lot of material there, but I'm not even going there.
All right, cool. And hopefully we'll see you back next week. All right, so come join us for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, over at podnuts.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. We got people that are going back and forth in there now, which is awesome. You can send an email to podnuts@podnuts.com, and we will read that, and I will physically answer it. Or you can leave a voicemail at 734-335-1000. That's a free phone call if you're in the U.S., For those that are outside of the U.S., I do apologize. I do not have a 1-800 number. So, but anyways, email still works. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.